Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Monday Mashup, the show we bring you every Monday where we go through all the weekend's Premier League action for my sins. And we also chat about all the latest headlines and any issues that have come up and stuff like that. And of course, we're going to be talking the managerial merry-go-round at the moment. Breaking Premier League records, 12 managers now shipped out in this season. It's been absolutely sensational. So we'll go through the list, drop a little fact about Chelsea as well. We're probably going to be talking about United's away form at the moment, not probably what it should be or what the expectation should be. Obviously, Casemiro, a huge loss for them. You can see the drop off is absolutely sensational. Obviously, we're going to be talking Chelsea, we're going to be talking Liverpool, we're going to be talking Arsenal, who have been unbelievable. How are you, Warren? Good to see you. All good, my friend. We'll see you in there. Redbird is in again as well. Fair play, Redbird. We meet again. It's been ages, all of 5 minutes. And Redbird's in. The only thing that brought a smile to my face was Scum United losing. Yeah, as a Red, I can imagine. So Warren's in. Warren's Team Talk. Make sure you check out all the channels, folks, that are in the chat there as well. Warren does a great show on a Saturday and stuff like that. Well, we're tuning in for the banter is unbelievable. Warren, I hope you're beginning to believe. Are you turning that Arteta corner? Tell me you're turning that Arteta corner. And of course, Morris in the chat as well. Casemiro, that old chestnut, one-man team. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing though. I suppose it's football has gotten so technical now, isn't it? That, like, if you were missing one player, one piece out of that jigsaw, it just falls asunder sometimes. Any chance Klopp will be on his way to Chelsea? Absolutely not. Not on his way to Chelsea, but I'd say pending on how the next few weeks go. Let's see what happens. Could be tough times, could be sad times. Let's see what happens. As always, folks, make sure you subscribe to all the channels in the chat there as well. Great chat and community that we have here on the upper tier, of course. And if you could hit the subscribe and bell notification for the channel as we try and make those moves towards 1,000 subscribers, that golden number that we need to get to, that we're pushing hard for, dropping content on a daily basis every single day. And of course, if you could hit a like on the video as well, very, very important. YouTube is not your friend when it comes to these things, so very, very important that you do that. Redbird back in. Try pop in other great chats to promote your channel. It will help get your subs up. We don't do so-called top reds, only real fans like us. Yeah, absolutely. I jump on. I do be in Jamie's one and Hussam and stuff like that, and also and Coppish, of course, all those boys. I do all their channels and stuff like that. I'll always be on there supporting those boys. Absolutely fantastic. The realest of real fans. That's what we want to hear from. The realest of real fans. I'd love to see Brendan Rodgers go to Chelsea. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Jesus, talk about the uproar if they decide to move from Stamford Bridge. Imagine if Brendan Rodgers went in there. Good Lord, there would be war. Nagelsmann available, Luis Enrique available, Zinedine Zidane available. Dare I say Pochettino available as well. Good Lord, can you imagine? It would be crazy. And my main man, Henry Ray Baker channel is in there as well. How are you, Henry? Good to have you on board for the Monday mashup tonight. Always welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Always hit Henry's channel up as well. Get those subs going. I want to get that man's subs up as well. So we'll start with our Premier League review. Good Lord, for my sins. So nowhere else to start and nowhere else to hide. I just did a preview as well on the channel there, folks, for the Chelsea game tomorrow night. I will be back match reaction to 10:15 tomorrow evening. If any of you guys want to join me for that, you're more than welcome to jump on and vent and create this therapy session that we need between now and the end of the season, let's say. So let's see what happens. But of course, we start off with Man City 4, Liverpool 1, a game of two halves. Liverpool starting off nice and solid and compact. Those two banks there working off the break and off the counter. Got the goal that we wanted. Coughed up a goal to Julian Alvarez. Not kind of coughed up, it was a good team goal, but a drop off must have let it happen. But certainly a really good team goal. And then afterwards, after half time, we come back out. And I'm still trying to figure out whether it was tactical by Klopp or whether it was players going into business for themselves. We'll know tomorrow night once we see the team. But De Bruyne comes up 46, sensational goal. Gundogan on 53, and Jack Grealish rounded out our miseries on 74 with a 4-1 win. Could have been more. They took their foot off the gas, really, in fairness. Klopp made that point as well. And some of his post-match comments were a bit weird, like giving a 10-man Man City would have beaten us and stuff like that, which is kind of his way of sending a signal to the players that he's not very happy at all. But the one thing I always stress in these situations, players don't get sacked, managers do. So let's get this sorted out sooner rather than later. Redbird is in. Sorry, I should go back a little bit further, first of all. Of course, Klopp's on his way to Chelsea. He's just bored at the coach with the Reds. Yeah. Nice one, Redbird. Nice one. And Henry's back in. Manure, oh, where are they? Manure, they stink. Yeah. Jeez, I tell you. Ahead of us. Be warned, Delboy is going to do a video about John Delaney and the FAI. He is going to blow up the internet. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've done a few of them in my time during international breaks about the FAI and stuff like that. Check out the one I have on the channel about Saipan with Roy Keane. I think it's one of our highest viewed videos. I think it's got 5,000 or 6,000 views or something like that. So, Delboy, I'm not surprised at all. Redbird and Henry, yeah, absolutely. And then Morris is back in. Steven Gerrard be a good fit for Todd's plan too. God. I think there's enough youth there to deal with without putting it in the managerial role. Niall, do we have to? I'm trying to forget that shit show. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to move on from it fairly quick. Don't worry. That's all I have to say on it. And Henry, question is, did they deliberately lose so that Newcastle could create a gap between them and the chasing pack to stop others getting fourth? I wouldn't have thought so. They got played off the park yesterday. Yo, Redbird. That's all I want to hear. And Warren is he taking the whole team with him, Redbird? No, there's a selection of players that didn't show up on Saturday against Man City. And if he has any sense, he would leave them behind and maybe bring a few lads like Ben Dope and a few others maybe, and instead of bringing these spoofers this season, let's say. Hopefully Warren and Redbird's in. Leave our Stevie alone. No way he would go to anywhere near Chelsea. You tried once before and he said, nah. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Let's move on from that one. Let's go into, and there was some great matches at the weekend as well. Some pivotal matches in terms of the relegation battle as well. So it was interesting. The next one up, of course, was Bournemouth and Fulham. Fulham taking an early lead through Pereira. All look good for Marco Silva. Things look a little bit on track. But the one thing I've identified with Fulham over the last few weeks is they look like they've ran out of a little bit of gas. They're slowly fading away this season. The dizzy heights that they've reached and stuff like that. They've had a sensational season under Marco Silva. Tavernier got the equaliser on 50 just after half time. And of course, a man that we would know well in the chat, especially you Reds, Big Dom Solanke, comes up with the winner on 79 minutes for Bournemouth to get the points. Big win for Bournemouth there, especially in the situation that they were in. And I think it lifted them, if I'm right, I think it lifted them out of the drop zone. Possibly, yeah, it did lift them out of the drop zone. Next up then was Arsenal versus Leeds. All going along nicely until Jesus on 35 minutes with a penalty that he scored. 4-1 to the Arsenal. He scored again on 55 as well. And then Ben White on 47 minutes with a goal as well. Absolutely sensational from Ben White, and Granit Xhaka on 84. And this is what I've spoke about with Arsenal this season. They're finding goals from everywhere now. That rhythm that they're creating, a lot of attacking choices and stuff like that. And goals are coming from a lot of different areas now. Jesus looked back to his brilliant self, absolutely, with those two goals as well. Christensen scoring on 76 for Leeds for the consolation and stuff like that. But this was always going to be a tough task for Leeds to get down to the Emirates and try and get at him. They stayed fast as long as they could for 35 minutes, but after that it just imploded really. And after that, Arsenal ran out sensational winners, 4-1. Of course, the pressure was slightly on them after City picking up a big 4-1 win against Liverpool at lunchtime, but they're matching City week in, week out, and it's another game off the list for them, so really, really good. Henry, Stevie is a red, never a blue, absolutely. Guys, if I could show you the camera around this room, the pictures I have around here of Stevie G and stuff like that, it's unbelievable. Morris, some win for Bournemouth that was absolutely huge, Morris, especially going behind. They could have easily faltered. One of the games of the week, and we kind of called it last week on the preview and stuff like that, was the game between Brighton and Brentford. Ran out 3-3. I think Brentford will be kind of kicking themselves. Took the lead on 10 minutes. Through Janssen, and then Matoma, of course, on 21 equalised for Brighton. What a season Matoma's having as well, absolutely sensational. Tony struck back on 22. Welbeck then coming up with the goal on 28. Pinnock putting Brentford ahead 3-2 with the goal on 49 from Pinnock. And Brentford looked like they were going to take the points and stuff like that. But then in the 90th minute, a penalty, McAllister steps up and slots the penalty home. 3-3, Brighton and Brentford. We did predict last week it would be a high-scoring game, and it could be a high-scoring draw, and that's what it turned out to be. Both teams having sensational seasons, brilliant managers, brilliant fan bases, brilliant players playing for them as well, playing in real good systems. And I like the way both these teams are coached as well, because they're coached in a way where the coaches fully understand the limitations and the abilities of the players and stuff like that, and they put them into those positions to get the most out of them, as good coaches should do. Really, really impressed with both these teams at every level this season. So sensational for both of them, and good luck for the rest of the season to both of them. Palace, Roy Hodgson, Mateta on 90 plus 4 minutes, getting the winner for Roy Hodgson. Pereira had taken the lead for Leicester City on 56 minutes, and then on 59 an OG from Everson, and then Mateta coming up of all people. We spoke about him last week on the preview show, saying that he hadn't shown up at all this season, and then all of a sudden, boom, up he comes. Huge win for Crystal Palace. Massive win for them, especially I think Saha went off injured as well, as far as I know, and he could be, I'm not too sure, I didn't get an update, I'm not sure if it's groinal or what it is, could be gone for a good chunk of the rest of the run-in and stuff like that, so that will put Palace under a lot of pressure. They always need Will Saha there, he's really, really important to them. Henry's in, hi Morris, and Redbird back in again. If he can find a team, he's been checking out the kids at Stanley Park. And once a red, always a red, Henry. If you know, you know, absolutely. And Henry's in, but I'm pissed off with the abysmal officiating, not just at Premier League level, but at women's games and at the academy level too. We should have won with the women and the academy, but for poor refs. Yeah, I think the refereeing at the moment at every level is just it's so bewildering, really, when you think about it. Just crazy kind of stuff. We should also mention, of course, in that Palace Leicester game, of course, that was the game basically that cost Brendan Rodgers his job, basically, and he became manager number 11 of the season to get the sack. So yeah, not good. Next up was Wolves versus Nottingham Forest, versus Wolves. Obviously a tough place to go. That man Johnson cropping up at the goal in 38 minutes, lasted all the way to the 83rd minute, and then a man that we've been talking about a lot on the podcast, Daniel Podence. Darren, as you know, Dazzler, he's a big fan of Daniel Podence, always speaks about him and stuff like that. Cropped up with the equaliser in 83 minutes. Kind of a draw, didn't do either team really a whole lot of good, really, but they'll be happy to have taken the points with the way results have gone at the weekend. And then we rounded out. It was an interesting. This was a slaughterhouse, really. Chelsea 0, Aston Villa 2. The goals by Ollie Watkins and McGinn with a fabulous goal as well. Chelsea kind of huffed and they puffed and they performed. And I think when I looked at the stats, it was 27 shots to 5, I think, in favour of Chelsea. So they did everything bar put the ball in the back of the net. They were creating and stuff like that at times, especially when Kante came on. They looked like a different team and stuff like that. But Emery is a tough nut to crack, you know, especially when he has his players organised and stuff like that. It was always going to be really, really difficult. So Villa took the points, and of course then there was nowhere to hide then in terms of Graham Potter's position really was really untenable at that stage. Let's take some more comments so we're keeping up with these. Damn right, Redbird, been a Red since the 70s, same as myself, Henry. 77 or 78 was when I started following Liverpool. It was bar, put a nipper. Refs are getting too many brown envelopes, Henry. Yeah, Possibly, yeah. When you listen to what's going on in La Liga and stuff like that, they keep shitting themselves. Yeah, 100%. And laugh out loud. Redbird back in. Me too, Henry. Well, we had some great players back then who gave their all for the bird week in, week out. Yeah, they were absolutely sensational back then, wasn't it? Football. Yes, we did. Can I hop on, Noel? You certainly can, lads. Anyone who wants to hop on can hop on. I'll get you the link now and I'll drop it in there. We can chat about anything you want. This is a chat-driven show every Monday. I just go through the results and stuff like that. But there you go, lads. Link is in the comments there. If anyone wants to come on, just hit up that link. You'll be in the background. I'll bring you on. Not a problem at all. Moving into Sunday, we had West Ham versus Southampton. This was a huge game with huge implications for the relegation battle and stuff like that. But West Ham agreed getting the goal on 25 minutes and they ran out the winners 1-0. Southampton, I would think, are dead and buried at this stage. And then we rounded out with Newcastle absolutely bossing Man U up at St James's Park there. The goals coming, of course, from Willock with a sensational header on the goal line. Basically, it was a beautiful bit of play as well. And Wilson on 88 to round off a win. But they absolutely battered United yesterday, and really the score was not a reflection of what it should have been. Redbird, 12 away points for us, 12 managers sacked. What is it with the number 12? Yeah, absolutely. Henry, here's the link for the subs. Yeah, absolutely. And here is the link, folks, in the chat. If you want to jump on, you're all more than welcome. Going to bring Henry on now. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Niall.
How are you? You might want to mute your telly. Your telly is coming through there, or some volume is coming through there.
Yeah. When I was watching the game, I didn't have any inkling of what was going to happen. I was overjoyed when Mo Salah scored, and breaking more records. And then we just capitulated again. And then went 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and we're just walking around like zombies. Absolutely shocking performance. In fact, the only ones that I would call out on as being anywhere good enough would be Allison and
Cody. Cody did okay.
But put about 2 players or 3 players that were actually good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to hear, yes, United lost, hooray! But that does nothing because they were playing Newcastle and they're in front of us. And also because of the Brighton-Brentford game are also ahead of us, and they both got a point.
Just Henry, if you can mute your telly there, can you mute your TV? Your TV is coming through.
Yeah.
Just mute your TV there. Your TV is coming through. That's all. Perfect.
Yeah, sorry.
Now go ahead.
I'm multitasking.
That's it. Has to be done. What was your impression of the post-match comments from Klopp, where he was talking about how he picked 4 players that had done okay, and Henderson was one of them, who I thought was horrific on the day.
Well, I mean, when we're playing big games or any games, we have to play 100%. We have to, because we are being paid mega wages, and to get mega wages and then be substandard, because we are back in 2019 and 20 when we were almost got the quadruple. It just seems like a deck of cards, and for you to get the ace, you've got to maneuver around so many teams to get the ace.
Yeah.
But we cannot get the ace. And it's not for the sake of getting the quadruple. It's also a case of player taking responsibilities for their shocking performances on pitch. But also, I have to say that Jurgen Klopp has to take responsibilities for his shocking lineups and his shocking substitutions. In my opinion, I may be wrong, but this is what I think. In a match, if you get an injury that you cannot continue, then obviously you have to substitution. But if you can go through to, let's say, the second half, around 60 to 65 minutes, then that's when you should be playing your substitutions. However many. Not necessarily 5, because I know we've got 5 substitutions we can make, but you don't have to use all of them.
Yeah, I would have
not going through that.
I
later.
Yeah, I would have thought looking at the game the other day, I would have thought it was crying out for 1 or 2 substitutions at half time. I thought Robbo was pretty poor and we could have brought on Costas. I thought Hendo was pretty poor and we could have brought on another midfielder. And I just thought that it needed to be changed up. And then I wasn't too sure in terms of how the actual how the lineup then went and stuff like that. How we went from being so compact and attacking City on the break or counter attack to going to the high line again against such a skillful team, which was fast players. And I did make the point as well that I thought Julian Alvarez on the day would be a real problem for us because he's that's kind of sneaky, very hard to contain and control and watch kind of player. He moves right across the front line to create havoc. No one really knows who's marking him. Whereas if you have Haaland there playing, and I suppose we also have to make the point on the City game the other day that Haaland wasn't playing, Foden wasn't playing, Bernardo Silva wasn't playing. These are all top players who normally would play in big games that weren't playing and have hurt us in the past. But I think if Haaland had played, I think with Haaland, we know what we get with him. It's power and it's pace and it's run. And we can kind of defend against that with our strength, the likes of Konate and Virgil van Dijk and stuff like that. I think with Alvarez, I think he just creates a totally different dynamic in there of we talk about Nunes being Captain Chaos. Alvarez does that as well, where he moves and he opens up things and creates space for other players and stuff like that in terms of doing the work as well that he does that goes kind of unnoticed because everyone expects him to score goals and he does. But I did say on the preview and I did say on a number of podcasts I was on that I thought that Alvarez would potentially cause us more trouble than what Haaland might have. Now, a lot of people kind of turn around and go, I know Carragher has come out and he's kind of been vindicated somewhat where he said that Man City are a better team with Alvarez than they are with Haaland. I wouldn't say they're necessarily a better team. What I would say is I'd say they're a different team and they give you something different to think about. But equally as good. So I'd have a different flavour on it to what Jamie Carragher would have. But I thought second half, once we dropped the De Bruyne goal, I think then it was just a capitulation then at that stage, and I just thought, if you want to sum up our season, you sum up our season when you look at a substitution like Mo Salah coming off or Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. That sums up our season really as to what's happened and what's unfolded and stuff like that. And I just think now it's going to be very, very difficult to get top 4. I was saying it on the Chelsea preview at this stage. And I think now we should lose the last, whatever it is, 9-10 games, whatever we have left, to just maybe do a little bit of experimental stuff and try something a little bit different and sort of, start maybe a little bit of our planning process for next season. rather than just going with the same 4-3-3, rather than going with the same personnel who haven't performed. That's been a big part of our season this season as well. Like, we just haven't had an option. Like if Robbo hasn't performed, he's been hesitant to put Costas in. When Costas has come in, he hasn't really performed to the level that we would want. There isn't really an option there in terms of Trent, so you could put Gomez out there, but he's had kind of a shocking season. So we just have had no options. Matip came into the team, then he had a couple of poor performances. Konate came back off injury. Konate wasn't even great on Saturday. He had a poor game by his level and stuff like that, and didn't have a great game against Ireland either in the international either. So it's worrying insofar as the hesitancy to make the changes and the rewarding of poor performances by continually picking these players. But I think Klopp, from his point of view, I think his hands were tied really. But I'm kind of like you as well. I don't get the whole love in for the 60th minute or the 65th minute for substitutions. I think if things are unfolding in the first half or at half time or whatever it is, make the changes then before you get punished. There's no point in going 3-1 down and then bringing Darwin Núñez on and expecting him to create a miracle or do something. You have to give the team every chance when it's at an even par or maybe when you're slightly ahead. And I just think, if he's looking on the sideline there and he sees the drop off at Robbo, he sees Virgil is not on it, and other things happening, Hendo not playing well in midfield, giving the ball away too cheaply and not controlling that midfield battle, which against City, really, when you think about it, if you go back and you look at all the games we played against City, it's the midfield battle that dictates what we do. You know what I mean? That's a huge thing for us, and it's been a sensational drop off,
Yeah. Can I just say something about the formations?
Yeah, of course.
Of the way we play, of 4-3-3, because I was watching our academy today, the recent games. They are also playing 4-3-3. The under-18s who played Wolves won 3-0 against Wolves, but they played a 4-3-3. Now they're under-18s playing the same formation, but also the under-21s are playing the same formation, but the way the under-18s played and the way the under-21s played.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a distinct difference. The under-21s were very, very poor. They are managed by Mark Bridge-Wilkinson, and all the play was going down the left-hand side. None of the play was going down the left-hand side to cross into the box. It was going down the left-hand side and into the box that way.
Yeah.
There was no play going through the centre at all. And I felt that it was a one-sided formation.
Yeah.
And it was stunted. And I think it bears relevance to the first team, how they play, because they also are playing the 4-3-3. And although we have Trent on the right and Robbo on the left, the way I see it, I think they should be moved forward into the middle, and then you have the two in the centre, and we need to buy a new right back because Calvin Ramsey is out for the rest of the season, and then who knows?
Yeah.
Costas, who plays
left
back up to Robbo.
Robbo, yeah.
Doesn't get enough game time because Klopp relies on Robbo. So therefore, I think Costas should be number one left back, and then we get another backup for Costas. We move Robbo up to the middle on the left hand side, Trent on the right, and then we have Bellingham, and we also have maybe Sanchez alongside him, and then
So you're thinking of playing like a, what are you
because
thinking of playing, like a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2?
well, I don't think we should have three forwards. I
So you're
think we
going
should
you're going with a
have
3
two.
3 5 3-5-2. You're going with a 3-5-2 with basically Robbo potentially, or Costas and Trent moving into kind of more of a wing back role.
Um,
And then you go with a
well,
back three. So your back three might be Van Dijk, Konate, and maybe Vardiol if we sign them, or three central defenders at the back.
because Robbo is now getting on in age, and I think it would be better if he. I mean, he's a good crosser of the ball, but I think it would best be served if he was in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I think what's happened with Robbo really is there's been a drop off in terms of Robbo in terms of performance, but also his ball into the box and his final ball has been quite poor this season as well. But he's kind of somewhat, let's say, he's gotten away with it a little bit because people don't focus on him, because he does track back and he does bring that energy. Um, Whereas people have been focusing more on Trent because Trent has been more exposed, and a lot more, let's say, of the errors maybe that have led to goals and stuff like that have come more from Trent's side than Robbo's side. But then I suppose what we forget as well, like what you said earlier about the underage level, a lot of our play tends to come down Trent's side. That tends to be the more pivotal attacking side, as opposed to Robbo side. So naturally, if that's where the ball is spending a lot of its time in the game, that's naturally where mistakes are going to happen more so. Um, I also think as well, if you look at the role, what's happened there with Trent and with Robbo with the overlapping runs has become quite difficult, because when the ball is fed into midfield and then into Nunes, because Nunes is a powerhouse, he picks up the ball, puts the head down, and he goes. It doesn't give Robbo that opportunity to do that overlapping run that he might have had there before with a different style player like a Luis Diaz. It was kind of a more of a sitting, more skillful and silky kind of player. I know he runs as well, but there was a lot more overlapping there. And then if you look on the other side, the problems that we've had basically is that tangent of Trent, Hendo, and Salah in that kind of triangle kind of mix there to allow to open up that space hasn't happened this season either, for one reason or another. And with Salah out so wide for most of the season, it doesn't leave any space for Trent there to go in and monopolise around the outside of him and stuff like that. So he needs to be pushed in a lot more central than what he is at the moment in order to open up that kind of area, which has gotten congested. You've seen it even sometimes when you get Trent and Harvey and Salah playing. The three of them are nearly clustered on top of each other. There's no room to operate. So then the play doesn't get spread. So the space doesn't get opened up to go against teams and stuff like that. And that's really been a problem for us this season, how congested that's been, how wide Salah has been, and just the difficulty for Robbo in trying to do those overlapping runs against Nunes, because Nunes is such a speed merchant as well. Trying to overlap run there with Nunes at the moment, well, good luck with that, no matter who you are. Not even to say a guy like Robbo, who runs himself into the ground and did all last season in pursuit of a quad.
Yeah. Also, I would like to see Harvey Davis brought up from the under 21s to be backup for Allison.
Yeah,
Now that
I think he'll end up being third choice, won't he? I think it's a great shout. I spoke about it looking at the squad assessment last week. I think he'll definitely come up, but I think it'll be third choice. I think they're chasing the keeper off Anderlecht, aren't they? Bart Vertegen or Verbruggen or something is his name, or something like that. Big lad, 6'4", 6'5", I think. Isn't going to cost a huge amount of money. So if Quivin does go, Quivin will probably go for maybe 20, 25 million. I think this guy is available for about 8 or 9 million. But looks a real established goalkeeper, and did well under Vincent Company when Vincent Company was looking after Anderlecht. So I think
Was
he's
I?
a target for us for the number two position. And I think Harvey will slot in then as the third.
Yeah, I know we bought another goalkeeper, um, but I think Harvey Davis deserves a promotion upwards.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
I think in fairness, moving into that third spot with the senior team will be a promotion. And sure, you never know. He might get a bit of game time and stuff like that in terms of the cups and stuff like that. We'll see what happens. But I don't think he'll take him from the position he's in at the moment. No disrespect him. He's a real good prospect and a very good player and a very good keeper. I don't think he'll jump him from where he is straight into that number two slot. I think that would be a step too much. And you know what happens with us, Henry, of course. The minute we make a decision like that, what's going to happen? Allison's going to get fucking injured. This is what happens. This is the way our luck has been so far. We end up bringing a guy like that up, and then all of a sudden he's thrust into the limelight. And then if he drops a few clangers or drops a few howlers, then he loses all his confidence, and then it all goes to pot. Then.
anyway, hi everyone in chat. Morris, Ian, Redbird, Warren. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, absolutely. They're always in here on the Monday night for it. Redbirds in teams target Trent because of his defensive inadequacies. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the worst kept secret, isn't it? Really, and it's interesting as well. I was listening to Jamie Phillips. I love Jamie's channel. He's so passionate and stuff like that. It's absolutely great. And he was talking today about how um, instead of coaching players in a way, I think he was saying to their positive aspects of their game. Sometimes we focus too much on the negativities of their game and stuff like that. And in terms of playing players in certain positions and stuff like that, why don't we play them in positions where the positive aspects of their game is really, really brought to the forefront, and we can kind of hide away a little bit of the negativity and stuff like that, and that might help. Hence the reason when I did the lineup earlier for the Chelsea game, I had put Trent in midfield. I was going, okay, this is what we've all been talking about, so let's go do it. This is an opportunity to do it. I really believe the next nine games are really a free hit. Now, I might be proven wrong in terms of the top four race, but I just don't see us capable of putting together a run that will deliver the top four. Now, unless the other teams have a massive fall off, then that's a different situation. Who knows what might happen there? And of course, we have a game going on tonight as well. I'll just bring you an update on that game as well. I have it here. Where are we?
Yeah. I mean, I know other teams are targeting Trent, but how many 23-year-olds can say they've won everything major trophy there's going? However, I think what I was saying before, that teams focus on Trent because they see him as a weakness, and they think that um, hang on just a minute. Sorry, just getting a
Yeah,
bit
no.
of interference.
Yeah, no,
Um,
go ahead.
yeah. I was just saying, how many players can say at 23 they've won everything? I can understand fans' concern about Trent's inability to defend. However, he made a major block on the City game that could have been a potential goal. Okay, it's not much, but when you block a shot that could be a potential goal, I think that's worth a mention. He's only 24 years old still. Um, but like I said, with Calvin Ramsey was brought in to be his backup, and still we haven't got a backup for Trent because we have the inability to spend because of FSG. are unwilling to spend. So that's why I say the whole club is guilty of failures, except the fans who spend mega money to do the season tickets. They pay for the away tickets. They pay for the cup tickets if they get through the ballot. And because of all that ticket fiasco, wanting to put the money up, they're going out in all weather to home games, away games, whenever, snow lashing down with rain. They make the club the fans. If you don't have fans, you don't have a club.
Yeah, well, the pandemic season proved all that. I mean, if it ever needed any
Yes.
proof, of course it doesn't, but that certainly proved it. Warren's in the chat here. If Liverpool are looking for a new left back, here on Tierney will be available in the summer, and he'll be available for cut price 12 million. I reckon. You reckon 12 million, Warren? Can't see you letting Tierney go for that kind of price. Tierney was gone for that kind of price. There's a bunch of clubs would snap him up, I'd imagine. Just to let you know, in the game going on tonight, it's a huge game tonight. From both ends of the table, really. Tottenham looking to jump into that top four position as well, which would move United down into fifth then. And Everton, of course, need a win tonight. They need the points. They're banging a relegation battle at the moment. So fairly serious ramifications for this game tonight. It's like a sort of a top four relegation kind of 6-pointer for both teams, really. So we'll keep you posted on anything that happens. There's 41 minutes gone and it's 0-0. Yeah, Kieran Tierney at 12 million. Interesting. Ian is in. I know I keep saying this, but football needs to go back to basics, back to the drawing board. No more showing off, less injuries and proper football. Yeah,
well said, Ian.
And Warren, thanks, Redboard. Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's similar. It's similar in seasons. Look, I mean, I think most people at this stage, if you're a neutral fan and you're not in the title race or you haven't got a card in it, I think most people would like to see Arsenal do it. I think even the United fans would like to see Arsenal do it, so Man City don't do the treble. Not only the treble, but the three-peat. So there's a lot on the line there in terms of matching history with United this season as well. Redboard, that's one of Klopp's problems, not playing players in their natural positions. He tries to mould them in other positions that don't suit them. Yeah, getting players that he crowbars into a system rather than adjusting the system for the players to play their natural positions and show their true quality, and that has been a problem. We can see it with the 4-3-3 and how we exhaust it. And then the problem is, because we don't practice the other stuff and the other formations, we end up with problems then, because when we does go to try and put that on the pitch or change it up against a low block or whatever it is, the players look lost and bewildered. They don't know what Klopp actually wants them to do.
And I think our training for 2 hours every single day, if we haven't got a match midweek, I think is way too much. I mean, I don't even think that Bill Shankly did that when he was manager in the 70s.
I can tell you now, Henry, if Bill Shankly had to put up with the performances that we've put up with this season, he would run the guts out of those players and boot camp them to bits. To make no mistake about it, he never suffered any fools gladly. I'll tell you that much.
Quite
and from
right.
my own coaching background as well, anytime I've coached at underage level, if we didn't perform at the weekend and we got beaten, it was boot camp on the Monday night and training. So I nearly threw up. That's the way it was. Can you say Trent will improve defensively, Henry? I can't. Can you see Trent defensively improving? But it's wrong to put it all on him. Other players need to be blamed as well. The whole team has had a major drop off. Look, let's be honest here. Literally the only players that can probably hold their head anyway at all this season is probably Alisson and probably Mo Salah. And even Mo Salah, as we spoke about earlier, between the stat and the eye test, his stats have been reasonable this season, but he has gone missing in so many games this season. His form and drop-off has been sensational by his own standards. But I think they're probably the only two. If you look at Alisson, how many times this season has Alisson saved us, and how many times has he basically been our man of the match? And at Liverpool's level and where we want to operate and stuff like that, for our goalkeeper to be man of the match so often is a sad indictment of where we're at. So yeah, absolutely. Henry, let's change it up from Liverpool at the moment. I'm just going to take a few comments here. Warren's back in. Cheapy Productions. That is why I suggested Guendouzi, because he can do that role, but can also do box to box role too. I was a big fan of Guendouzi when he broke in first at Arsenal and stuff like that. He went a little bit sour and stuff like that, and he went a little bit mental, as they say. But listen, you need those kind of players in your team as well that kind of play on the edge, and especially in midfield down through the years. If you look at all the top midfielders that played, they always played on the edge. Lampard, Gerrard, even if you go back Vieira, Kane, any top midfielders that played in the Premier League always played on the edge of that fine line between, dare I say, sportsmanship and madness, for lack of a better word. But yeah, that's a great Guendouzi Warren earlier. That was a great shout. I was a big fan of him, and I know he went to France and he was doing good things over there as well. But Guendouzi, quite a little hothead, I would say, as well. Ian's back in. The football being played these days, somewhat needs to be taken note of the injuries that's happening. Yeah, look, they look at it in, but I think what happens is it's just, um, dare I say, when you think about the injuries these days, it's different to the old days. When you think of Terry Butcher wrapping up his head and nearly bleeding to death and playing on, you look at it these days. Now, if you break a nail on a small toe, you're ruled out for the game. Nearly, Redbird back in. Regarding Trent since started in the team, he hasn't improved defensively. That's why I say maybe Klopp should try him in midfield. Yeah, I agree with that, Redbird. I think that should happen. The only thing I'm
Yeah.
concerned about is when we play, if we still play with that attacking right back stroke wing back, if you want to call it, the way Trent plays now, if we slot a player into that position, or are we going to play him just as your traditional right back? Then that's where the question comes up, because what happens is, if you notice the way Trent attacks, when Trent attacks, in order to not get exposed down that end, Hendo tends to tuck in, or whoever's on that right side of central defence tends to tuck in and provide that cover. So what happens is, if you're going to put an attacking right back in there as well, and maybe that's not the way we go, then Trent will still have to tuck in and cover. And that's where my concern is. Are we moving a problem from position A to position B? Um, are we kind of letting a player off the hook? There's a lot of dynamics to that as well. But I do agree. I definitely think we should try it. I definitely think we should try it, and we should figure it out. But I'm not too sure what's the best way to go with it. I'm not really a fan of moving a problem from one part of the pitch to the other. I think what you should do is make a decision on it and see how it goes. But let's see, it'll be interesting. But that's why I think we should use the next 8 or 9 games to try out certain things and get a flavour and see how it kind of pans out. So let's see what happens. Warren is in there. Come on, the Toffees. Of course, Warren being a big Gunners fan and stuff like that. Of course, you want Spurs. Yeah, I'd be the other way, Warren, because I want Spurs to win tonight, because I want United to go down into fifth. But that's just me.
Is there any
Redbird.
score in the Spurs game?
No, it's still 0-0. It's just gone half time. I think it's gone half time now, and it's 0-0 at the moment.
Mm.
So we'll see how it pans out. Redbird back in. We all say thanks to the great Bill Shanks. He must be turning in his grave. R.I.P. Great man. Yeah, Shankly, he was the man. He was a man's man. Can you imagine performing like you did in that second half of Man City? And imagine rocking in on a month. Well, actually, imagine going into the changing room right after the game. That man would have been tearing it up. I said it actually on Saturday. I said, I hope Klopp is in there absolutely hair drying the head off Jordan Henderson. It was absolutely shocking. But yeah, absolutely. Ian's back in. We don't go to football games to see players get injured. We go to see a good game of football. Yeah, but it's a natural part of the game. It's going to happen. Good game, fair play and respect. Yeah, absolutely. And Redbird, all being Ali being player of the season, yet when he makes a mistake, which is rare, some of our fans get on his back. I feel sorry for Ali. It's not his fault. The defense is crap at times. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, he's been kind of exposed this season. He's had to have been unbelievable. Now, what I would say that as well, and I love Alisson Becker, he's tops. But he's dropped a few clangers this season himself as well, that not necessarily is the defence's fault. But I get your point, Redboard, absolutely. I don't know why the fans, the last player in the world on the Liverpool side you'd want to be going in on is Alisson Becker. But let's change up. Let's change up and talk about something else. Let's talk about this, Henry, if you want to stick with me. We've had 12 managers sacked so far this season in the Premier League. It's a new record. The original record was 10. But we topped that off at the weekend with Brendan Rodgers and Graham Potter. What was your thought on Rodgers and Potter being sacked?
Well, we knew it was coming. We didn't know when, but we knew that he should be sacked because the results were just over and over and over again, losing, the poor performances. Um, and the fact that they actually sacked him behind closed doors, and then it all became known that he was fired. Um, but as far as who comes in, oh, guy. I mean, people are saying Nagelsmann, who just got sacked from Bayern. Um, I hope Gerard doesn't touch it with a barge pole. Because I know he was possibly going to go there years ago, but to me, Gerard is a red and always will be a red.
Yeah, Jared,
Um,
Jared's not going to be in the running for the job. Definitely not. It's going to come down to Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique, Zinedine Zidane, maybe, but that would be an absolute stretch. And Poch as well would be an absolute stretch. So I really think it's going to come down to Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique. And it depends on what way they want to go with it. I know they expressed reservations at Nagelsmann only being 35, and they might like something a bit more experienced. So it depends on whether they want to actually go with a 2 year or a 3 year project, because their turnover in managers is kind of like, it's too much really for a team that's trying to play at that level. And they need to try and find the right man, whoever that is, but they need to give them a bit of time. Um, I thought, I'm a big fan of Graham Potter. I was a huge fan of Graham Potter when he was at Brighton and stuff like that. I thought he's a very, very good coach, especially with younger players and stuff like that. But I think the leap maybe to Chelsea was probably a bit too much for him, and I think maybe something in between would have suited him better. So, I could really see Graham Potter maybe going into Leicester. That would definitely be an option there. But in terms of Chelsea, I think you're probably looking at Nagelsmann or Luis Enrique, and it depends on. I was speaking about it earlier on the preview show, trying to find a balance there at the moment between instant gratification and wanting to win and do the right things and all that, and also trying to build a team around new signings coming in and all that kind of stuff. And the upheaval that Chelsea have gone through in the last year, the new ownership, obviously with the Ukrainian and Russian war, and the effect that had on it, the club has turned upside down. New owners have come in, they've gone out into the market and bought players, not necessarily in the way you would think towards a manager. But certainly Todd Bowley has gone out there and he's put money where his mouth is. Maybe not always in the right positions and stuff like that, and maybe he shouldn't be the man doing it. Sporting director should be doing that, and they have a lot of that in place now as well. But I mean, the real big problem for Chelsea at the moment, they're carrying a kind of a disjointment of a mix and a blend of 3 or 4 managers with 3 or 4 different philosophies, all blended into one mixer. And you're trying to get a performance out of it. And that's why at times they have a lot of fabulous players, 1 to 11. But there's a disjointment because they're all brought in a different kind of philosophy. And it's trying to get a manager that could do that. Now, whether Nagelsmann could do that or not, I don't know. The other thing I'd say about Nagelsmann as well is he can be quite prickly as well in his approach and stuff like that. I mean, that's why literally he's gone out of Bayern Munich, because he basically just couldn't get on. As opposed to, I know the results in the Bundesliga were a little bit iffy and stuff like that, but that they'll tend to find their situation there in the Bundesliga. Plus, they've done very well in the Champions League this season. So it was a strange decision. But I don't know whether I'm not too sure whether Chelsea is the location for him to go to, because I think if he goes there at 35, and I think if it goes the route of Potter, it can be quite a blot on your CV. I spoke about Nuno going into Spurs at the time. He was doing a fabulous job at Wolves, really respected manager. Goes into Spurs, it goes ass ways. He goes out of Spurs, and all of a sudden, then you don't hear about him. He just disappears basically. And that can be the risk when you make those decisions. So for Nagelsmann, I think his next move, he has to be really, really careful about it.
But this is all Bo Healy's fault, in my opinion, because when he bought the club and moved all his honchos in, and then started buying all those players, because he wants to shift out all the players that were Abramovich reign. But I think it's all come back on him and bite him in the ass with the results that he's had, because he wants to be seen as a mega rich oligarch. But the players that he's bought, that have signed for 7 years, they won't last that long. They will have gone by then, if they, maybe a year or two.
Yeah, I was thinking, the idea of the contracts that he was doing there was really to kind of find a way to circumvent FFP by being able to spend a lot of money and bring in a lot of talent in maybe one or two windows and stuff like that. So we'll see how that pans out, because there is talk at the moment that they might be in a little bit of trouble there as well. They're going to need to move on a lot of players in the summer as well. And obviously they've got such a bloated squad as well. So I mean, naturally they'd have to move on. I think there's new rules coming in terms of the loan book and stuff like that as well. And we know that Chelsea always with a huge loan book in terms of their players, so that might have to be looked at as well. Morris back in from Cheap Heat. The new Chelsea regime of sticking by the manager has went well. Absolutely. Remember they brought him in and they did the press conference. He said this man's going to get 3 years, and we're going to fully support him and all that. And what a difference a day makes, huh? Ian's saying, what's happening, Henry?
What actually Todd Boehly wants in return for all this expenditure. Does he actually want the Super League to happen like everybody else does? Like the City owners, Real Madrid owners? Does he want to be a part of that? Is that why he's gone gung-ho with all the expenditure, shifting out the Abramovich players? I mean, what is his long-term vision for Chelsea Football Club?
Well, I think in fairness to him, I think it's hard to tell really, because he's quite new to football, or as he would refer to it, maybe as soccer. But I think what he wanted to do basically was he had made a commitment. He had made a lot of commitments as part of the purchase, to heavily invest in the squad and stuff like that. And I think what happens is I think he went from one end of the range to the other end of the range, probably a bit too quick. And I think a better assessment of the squad that was there and stuff like that first, before absolutely going boom, boom, boom. And I think he kind of jumped on a couple of players that were kind of names that were out there that people were talking about. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, like a kid at Christmas, I'll have him and I'll have him and I'll have him. And then on top of that, of course, he took out very quickly, as you said, a lot of the people that were there, the likes of the Peter Cech and people like that had been around Chelsea for a long time. Instead of kind of bleeding their knowledge in this kind of process and have a kind of a slowly phasing out type of thing, I think he pulled the shutters down very quick on Marina as well. He pulled the shutters down on them really quick, and there was a lot of Chelsea knowledge there in terms of the market and in terms of the squad and the players and stuff like that, that I think he just said, this whole thing went to shit and it was on your watch, so good luck. And I think it was a kind of a little bit, slight bit naive, really, but I think I think he's obviously demonstrated he's willing to spend money. I think he's searched and tried to find certain ways to do business in terms of the transfer market to kind of negate or circumvent a little bit FFP. And who knows, we'll have to wait and see. Does giving a contract to a player like Michaela Mudryk for 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it is, to amortize the cost through the accounts to negate FFP, does that work, or would it come back to bite you if it doesn't work out, or if that player doesn't work out? how easy is it to move him on, or what do you value him at, and what does the contract then mean, and all that kind of stuff. There's kind of a reason why contracts have generally been 3, 4, 5 years, because what happens is it somewhat protects the player, but also somewhat protects you. But the problem is with the financial fair play rules, if you're going out spending say 105 million on an Enzo Fernandez, you're going to have a problem if you're putting that through your accounts over a 3 or a 4 or a 5 year contract. It becomes a lot more difficult in terms of trying to fix that, and you've seen that they've posted losses of 121 million there last week. So between that, and then when you overlay that into this year, then the spend that they've done, whatever it was, 3, 4, 500 million, whatever it is, in terms of the circle of FFP, it becomes a pretty difficult conversation to have. And the last thing they need as part of this redevelopment and rebuild of Chelsea with the fallout from Abramovich is to get sanctioned again in terms of the transfer market would be a real problem for them. So we'll see what the moves do this summer, but I think you're going to see a lot of players going out now. The loan book is going to have to be reduced. Obviously, you can see that they're talking about moving on players like Mason Mount if you can't agree a contract. You can tell that there's a bit of pressure there because the money that they're asking for him is absolutely lunacy for a guy who's in the last year of his contract. I think they're quoted as asking 60, 70 million for him, which is absolutely lunatic money for a guy in the last year of his contract. But we shall see.
I can't see Potter staying in the Premier League. I think for him to maybe try abroad, or go down to the Championship and try, because I don't see him, and with Rodgers as well. Rodgers won't get another Prem job. He's not good enough. So
well, there's been links for him to Spurs as well. So interesting. See, this is the funny world of the managerial world, isn't it? You can fail badly as a manager, and you could be in a top job again within a month or two. It's crazy when you think about it. Like if you look at Jose Mourinho or you look at Antonio Conte, some of the places they've gone to, when it all goes kind of toxic and falls apart. You've seen Jose at Spurs, you've seen him at United, even though he got silverware at United and stuff like that. When it gets toxic and then they go straight away, they're in a top job again. They're just hired again, and the managerial thing is a strange one. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Rodgers ended up at Spurs and if Potter ended up at Leicester. Wouldn't shock me one bit.
Right. I mean, if you watch the Klopp press conference, the post-press conference, where he jokingly said about thinking, is he going to be next for the sack?
Yeah, that was for the prayer today, the Chelsea press conference. Yeah, and like as I said on the Chelsea preview, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be joking about things like that, you know what I mean? Because as I said, if that was any other club, you may not. Liverpool, as I always say, are the club that we love. We don't have a history of pulling that trigger quick in terms of managers and stuff like that. We're very, very loyal to our managers and stuff like that. Well, you look at that. If that was, you look at managers have been sacked this season for a whole lot less. So I wouldn't be even joking about something like that. And considering when you look at the result on Saturday, which really compounded the situation, and now Chelsea tomorrow night, if we were to drop an L there, and then if Arsenal were to turn us over at Anfield on Sunday, which may or may not happen. Arsenal have been breaking the mold this year by picking up results in places where traditionally they haven't, so it wouldn't surprise me. So if we came out of these 3 games with 3 L's, questions have to be asked. And again, I love Jurgen Klopp. I don't want Jurgen Klopp to go, but the conversation has to be had. and we can't steer away from it. Warren's in. Bowley is waiting for me to become available, and I'm waiting on Del Boy and the Wexford Volcano. Can you imagine that as a lineup in the dugout? My God. And Morris was saying there as well, Potter is getting 21 million payout. Might see him in Amsterdam next week window shopping. Isn't it mad that you can go to a place and fail and walk off with 21 million as a payout? It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. I mean,
It's mad.
that's why I'm saying mega wages and players and managers. Well, I mean, but I think it's the influx of foreign managers, foreign owners into clubs. I know clubs need money to run, but when you've got people like Bo Healy, FSG, the Sheikhs that are coming into the Premier League and throwing millions and millions of pounds into the clubs, and players are getting so much money per week to play, but it's like players are looking at the dollar signs and giving a sub-performance. Man, with Potter getting a £21 million payout, he doesn't deserve 21 million. I mean, what has he done for 21 million?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Obviously, when you hand a manager a 5-year contract, and if the club decides they want to break the contract, then obviously there has to be some compensation. But I mean, when you think about it, like 21 million, like this guy, I mean, is it any wonder he jumped at the chance to sign for Chelsea, when he was at Brighton, you know what I mean? This was the golden nugget that was waved at him. Here's an interesting one for you, Henry. I want to get your thoughts on this. Hate to say it, but I think the Toffees will stay up. Been saying this for a while. Hopefully I'm wrong. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, just to let everyone know, first of all, it's 0-0, 48 minutes gone. We're back underway and there's been no changes in the game tonight.
You can't see Daniel Levy playing Conte 21 million or even higher for the job he's done at Spurs, can you?
No, but see, the difference with Conte is Conte was out of contract in June. So Potter still had probably 4.5 years to go on the contract, or 3.5 years.
Today's world, football is a business. It's not football where you can take your family and sit in the stands and watch a game for 90 minutes. It's purely a business acquisition because fans are being loyal to the club that they are supporting and paying out good money, and they are not being heard when issues are arising in their clubs because the owners are just doing what they want because they've got the say-so. Yeah,
no, you're right, you're spot on there. It's an interesting one when you look at the 12 managers there that have had the sack as well, isn't it? It's mad there. And if you look at Scotty Parker there down on the right, he's got the sack twice this year because I think he went and he started managing Club Bruges, and he got the sack from there as well. So he's been fired twice this season. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of payoffs he went with, Question for you, Henry, and probably for Redbird as well, and anyone in the chat who dares to chime in on this. Redbird is saying there he hates to say, but he thinks the Toffees will stay up. Been saying it for a while, but hopefully I'm wrong. I'm kind of torn on this whole thing of everything getting relegated, even though I'm a Liverpool fan through and through, bleed red and stuff like that. And I know the history there and stuff like that. I lived through it, all those great years and stuff like that when Everton were a real big club at the time. But I'm sort of torn between the banter of them going down and what might happen, because I think if Everton go down, I think you might get a lead situation where we wouldn't see them for a long, long time. But then what's the ramifications for that in terms of the Merseyside derby? We technically lose the derby unless we drew them in a cup or something. So give me your thoughts on that. And Redbird, you give me your thoughts in the chat as well. Let me know what you think of that. I'm always torn between it. And often I've said I'd really miss the Merseyside derby. It's such, when you think about Liverpool, and if you've been over there and you've felt the city and stuff like that when you're there, there's a great dynamic in that city between Everton and Liverpool, between the red and the blue and all that kind of stuff. And I just think, one half of the city would be kind of sucked out there if they got relegated and stuff like that. We would lose the two Merseyside derbies each year, which are two matches that I always really look forward to. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, the city has always been red. It's never been blue. But when you have finances, you have to use your finances wisely, and be upfront with your finances, and no corruption, because you can always look at Barker and other teams. However, with Everton, if they were to go down, fans say they would miss the Merseyside derby. I personally wouldn't, because it's all about change within the Premier League. As teams are coming up from the Championship, they deserve the right to be in the Premier League. Burnley, Sheffield United, and one of the others, whoever gets the promotion. And if you have played badly all season and you get relegated, whether you are Merseyside, Manchester, or wherever, you have to take responsibility of your failure to win games.
Yeah.
And go down to the Championship or go down to League One. Because then you've always got the chance to come back up. But with Everton's stadium, and not being in the Premier League, is going to take a big hit. I thought it was quite hilarious having the stadium at the dock. I mean, who on their right minds would put a stadium right by the docks? Yes, it puts distance between Anfield and the docks, but it's like they're proving that their club is so small. They're proof that Everton don't have any worth.
Do you know
They're
what's you know?
proving they need change.
Yeah, do you know what's funny, Henry? Of all the times I've gone over to Liverpool to matches, and a number of lads can vouch for this as well. Every single taxi I've gotten into, every single taxi in Liverpool, I've always been Blues fans. I've never gotten into a taxi, I don't think even once, where the taxi man was a Red fan. It's mad, isn't it? When you go over there, it's the dynamic in the city is crazy.
Because that's why you get all the disagreements between fans. You always get, because we have so much history. Because you look at what Everton have won back to 1995 or something, when they last won something.
Yeah.
So there's no comparison. We're not trying to be boastful with what we have. It's just, you've got to be.
Yeah, I suppose I do. I know where you're coming from. I do remember though. Like, I mean, Everton do have they do have a great history in terms of their football and what they've won. I know it's a long time since they've won anything. but they people forget as well the history. Like we hear the narrative sometimes when we talk about Liverpool, and people say, "Oh, we've won Premier League," and the choicing of words about 19 wins and 19 leagues and stuff like that and all, but it's only one Premier League and stuff like that. People forget how big Everton was and how successful they were back then and stuff like that. And it's I suppose it's just coming from maybe it's from my own sort of greed really, that I wouldn't like the Merseyside derby to go. So if I had a preference, I think the what would you say, the runtime or the length of the banter if they got relegated. I don't think that would outweigh losing the two Merseyside derbies and whatever else goes on. So that's only
Yeah.
one thing. And they break my heart. Twice I've been over there where we've lost the Champions League, and the Everton fans, they'd be setting off fireworks in Stanley Park and all stuff. They'd break your heart. But I think it's really important to the city as well. And I think that can't be missed out as well. Having Everton in the Premier League and ourselves in the Premier League in a city like Liverpool is really, really important for the vibrancy and the success of the city and stuff like that as well. And it's just something to think about. What you're thinking here on Redboard here, talking about Kelleher. If he leaves, he wouldn't blame Kelleher if he left. He's too good a player, second choice, absolutely. I think my thoughts on Queeveen Kelleher is I think he does have to go to get full-time football, because he's in a real battle there with Gavin Bazunu at Southampton for the Ireland position in terms of the international number one choice. But he's without a doubt, for me, there's no argument for me that Queeveen Kelleher is the best number two backup goalkeeper in the Premier League, I think. And that's not my biased Liverpool head on me, but that's what I think. And I can see where you go.
Because if you look at the WSL Women's League, Everton are higher than Liverpool Football Club. And they beat us twice. But that was only due to poor refereeing. They shouldn't have won twice. But that was only my point of view. If you don't get relegated and stay in the Premier League, then there's no point in having promotion upwards. So
Yeah.
teams that are in League 2 don't get a chance to come up to Division 1 and then up to the Championship. So they're just playing with the same teams season after season after season. Yes, there's camaraderie between Everton and us because we're both Merseyside teams. But again, like I said, you can't stay in the Premier League if you are not playing well.
Yeah,
And
the
amassing
the table doesn't lie. At the end of the season, the table doesn't lie. It shows what it is and stuff like that. Just to give you an update, Henry, and everyone in the chat on the game tonight, 58 minutes. The Corey has just been given a straight red for Everton. So Everton down to 10 men now. 60 minutes gone, still 0-0. And we've just seen as well a yellow card was flashed there. After violent conduct, Harry Kane rightly goes into the book. Harry Kane with violent conduct gets a yellow card. That might be a talking point. We'll have to look at that later and see what that violent conduct was like. Maybe VAR might have looked at it as a red. I don't know what it is. I can't see the actual game here. I'm just following it here on live scores. But a red card for Everton, straight red for the Corey now, and he's going to miss violent conduct as well. So he's going to miss 3 games now, missing for Everton. So that could... as Redboard said now, that will kind of affect them, I would imagine.
I can't see that staying a goalless draw if they're down to 10 men.
We'll see now how
I
Tottenham
can see
push
Spurs
forward.
winning that now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
The table will be even more the bigger gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Warren's back in. If we were given a 5-year contract to work for a company and it went badly, and after a year the company decided to sack us, we wouldn't get a 4-year payoff. It's mad, yeah. The thing about it is, the thing about it, Warren, is with Potter, there was talk, believe it or not, um, that he was due somewhere in the region of 50 or 60 million. So they obviously came to a deal on the 21 million, as staggering as it is. Um, but apparently he was due about 50 or 60 million, because remember, there's probably 4 years still to run on his contract, maybe more even, you know what I mean? So he was only there, what? He isn't even there 6 months, is he? Maybe a
Well,
little bit longer. Yeah.
I've had a thing about players signing a 5-year contract. Why sign a 5-year contract if you're not going to stay for 5 years? It's stupid.
Mm.
Why don't you managers give a rolling contract for a year and then say could be extended, but to give a 5-year contract, I mean, how many players actually stay for 5 years? They're usually moving on after two, right?
Mm.
Or
Sometimes,
is
yeah,
that
but I
wrong?
think, yeah, no, you're probably right. But I think a lot of that sometimes is not necessarily driven by the player. It can be driven by the club as well. And if it's driven by the club, then it's obviously a different dynamic. Redbird is back in. I don't want the Toffees to go down, if I'm honest. Being a Scouser, I have a lot of blue nose mates and I love our derbies. Yeah, the banter does be sensational. And Redbird can obviously back me up being over there and stuff like that. Like, I don't think I've ever gotten into a taxi where the first thing you always say when you get into a taxi over there, you always say to the taxi man, are you red or blue? And I think every single time they've always said it's blue. Actually, we were getting an early taxi one time back to Liverpool Airport, I think it was. We were coming back from a game that morning. Um, I think I was over for the Brighton game when we drew at Anfield. Um, and I think the taxi driver was talking to us and he was giving us awful stick because actually Everton were doing really good at the time. It was under Ancelotti when he was having a good run with Everton and doing really, really well. And the banter in the taxi going to the airport was unbelievable. But Redbird to be able to tell us, I don't know. As far as I could say, nearly every single taxi driver in Liverpool City is an Everton fan. It's crazy when you're over there.
And
Richie's back in,
Everton will
or
be
Ian.
sucking their sore throat sweets by now.
Yeah. Yeah, you could fire all these managers and they will still have the money to spend and live the good life. Yeah, absolutely. 21 million. You live a pretty good life on 21 million. I get what you're saying, Henry, but on that logic, we don't deserve a top four place, even though we'd be buzzing if we did. We don't let's call a spade here tonight. We don't deserve anything this season. We have been horrendous. But I would, if I got top four, I would be stoked. You know,
I don't think
it'd
we
be
deserve
unbelievable.
fourth at all.
No, no.
I think we barely deserve fifth, even
I
though
think
we are
some would say we
eighth.
barely deserve eighth. We've
Yeah,
been
I
that bad
know.
at us. Yeah.
I was trying to be kind.
Warren's back in. I don't think Everton will go down for footballing reasons, but there is a big financial dark cloud hanging over them relating to misconduct, which may result in them being relegated. Yeah, that might be the problem, the points deduction and whatever else. Just to let you know, another yellow card there. Langley for Spurs has been yellow carded there as well. So the cards are starting to get a bit contentious there now, I would say. Tottenham on the attack. But yeah, good shout, Warren. Um, Redbird, we need the blue taxi drivers to drive us Reds around. At least they're useful for that, at least. Yeah, absolutely. Redbird could probably back me up. He probably sees it himself. He gets in, and especially if you're not from the city and you're there visiting, going to a game and stuff like that. It's the first question in every taxi: are you red or blue? Or the taxi men will always have like one of those match day pennant types things sitting there, and it'll either be Everton or Liverpool, just to avoid the questions. It's like it's
Yeah,
sort of I find like when you're over here, just to give you a feel over here in Ireland, when you get into a taxi, the one question that you always chat to a taxi man about to break the ice is, uh, have you had a busy night or have you had a busy shift? You always ask that. Have you been busy? You know what I mean? And everyone asks the taxi man that. They hate that question as well. And I think in Liverpool it's the same for the outsiders. It's always like, are you red or blue? And I'm sure they go, what what you mean by red or blue? You know what I mean? You probably hate the question. It's grass, you know. Warren's back in. If they go down, I think that they might be gone for a long time. Yeah, that's my thinking, Warren. That
Yeah.
I think we could have a Leeds part two there because a lot of players would go and stuff like that. And then what's going to happen to the stadium and all this other stuff? There's just been a penalty, as far as I know, awarded to Tottenham.
I see it as for Everton that comparison with if you're an alcoholic, you need to hit rock bottom before you come back up, and they need to hit rock bottom before they can come up.
Yeah, just to give you an update there, on 67 minutes, a penalty awarded to Tottenham. Michael Keane from Everton has conceded a penalty for tripping Christian Romero. Can you imagine the hypocrisy of that? Romero winning a penalty when he has been absolutely crazy all season and getting sent off and stuff. He's after winning a penalty for Spurs. I presume Harry Kane will come up and put it away.
That'll be Kane.
Yeah, Everton are a massive club. In fact, I'm right in saying the fifth biggest in England. Yeah, they are. If you look at their history and stuff like that, the Corey off, you've seen that one, yeah. And evening, lads. Marky's in. I'm late to the party tonight. Dazzler looks younger tonight. That's not Dazzler. That's Henry Mark.
Cheeky Mark.
Yeah, Redbird. That was stupid. Yeah, absolutely. And Eno's in. Shout out to my friend Ian Kelly, losing his edge on Saturday watching the game. Yeah, absolutely.
But then they got Pickford to save the goal.
Yeah, Redboard. Everton may still nick this. How many times have we seen a 10-man beat 11? Yeah, especially at Goodison. Goodison penalty Spurs, so that's the one there. So we're going to get an update on this penalty, of course. Penalty for Tottenham. So we slowed updating the penalties. There's probably people going ballistic and stuff like that. So stick with me here for a minute, and I'll keep you updated. Looks like it's a goal for Tottenham, and I presume it's Harry Kane. 1-0 to Spurs. Yeah, Harry Kane with the goal, taking the penalty as we expected. 1-0 to Spurs. I'm sure the last 20 minutes are going to be crazy. 68 minutes gone. 1-0 to Tottenham. Tottenham go up into the top four. Man United drop out of the top four. Pressure now on Ten Hag, of course, in those positions. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. Yeah, interesting. Redboard, yeah, a lot of toffee taxis. When we at home, they just love to torture themselves driving to Anfield. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you know what I notice as well, Redboard? If I ever get a taxi, if I'm in the city centre and I ever get a taxi up to the ground, and it is an Everton fan, they never drop you right at the ground. They always drop you back from it, so you have to walk up. And I think it's just a thing with them. Because they could drive up, there is room to drive up there and stuff like that. But they always drop you back from the ground, and I wonder, is it just something that they do or something like that? Funny though, funny times over there. I love Liverpool, great city. Always buzzing. Yeah, that's it, Henry. Another good show, another Monday mashup in the bag. It was great having your company. Really enjoyed it as always. Great to have you on.
Thank you very much, Niall.
Brilliant having you on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, not a bother at all. Anyone is welcome anytime. And of course, make sure you head over to Henry's channel and make sure you subscribe to it, folks. Share the love. Everyone in the chat, really appreciate you being in there. Take a few last comments. Marky's in. Fixtures don't help Everton at all. Some tough games coming up. Listen, let's be honest, with the way the seasons has gone, like every game is a tough game for Everton, isn't it? They're not exactly knocking it out of the park. Warren's on. Sorry, I have to go. Great show, lads. Not a bother, Warren. Catch you during the week, as always. And Joanne Smith is in. How are you, Joanne? We're just about to finish. But thanks for joining us in the chat. Joanne was unlucky the other day with a few bets. She screenshotted some bets to me there. And she was very unlucky. She had Brentford to win 3-2 against Brighton in her bet. And she was unlucky with that late equaliser and stuff like that. But she's knocking it out of the park with some of the picks. And Redbird back in. Great show, you two. Appreciate it, Redbird. Thanks for your time in the chat on both shows tonight, actually. Big thank you to Henry, of course, who was my co-host, if you like, tonight on the show as we went through stuff. It was good fun having you on and stuff like that. I will be back tomorrow night at 10:15 for my sins with a match reaction. And of course, on Wednesday, 8 o'clock on Dynamo's Dozen, we'll be doing a review of WrestleMania 39, which took place this week. My other love of my life, which is pro wrestling. And then Thursday, I'll be back with Darren for the Thursday Tier Talk. We'll be doing a preview for the Premier League, all the latest news, getting Darren's thoughts on what's unfolding, and especially with the managerial merry-go-round. And of course, Beat the Bookie will be giving you our picks and tips for the weekend's betting as well. As always, gamble responsibly if you're going to have a bet. Until next time, folks, an absolute pleasure. Hit the subscribe and bell notification button, and of course, drop a like on the video. Big up to everyone in the chat, and subscribe to all the channels in the chat. Good night, everyone, and have a safe week, and enjoy the game tomorrow, Reds, if you can. If you can. Cheers.